Oh, well. Never mind.
Okay. Well, welcome to the January 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. So it's a Zoom presentation, so hopefully if anybody wants to be here on Zoom, they'll know how to do it. For attendance, it looks like we have a full slate here, so the two guys in the end don't get to vote. So, sorry. Okay. Approval of minutes from 12/20/23.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Ed?
Yes, I approve.
Approve.
Approve. Approve.
Approve.
Okay. Good. Well, that brings us to the agenda. The first item is number 231202, 132 Marshall Point Road, Marshall Point Realty, Walsh. And this is an initial review. And you'll certainly, whoever you are going to have to introduce yourself.
Right,
So quickly forgot.
absolutely. Well, good evening, Board. For the record, my name is Werner Gilliam, and with me as well tonight is Kelsey Weir. We're representatives from Walsh Engineering, and we're here on behalf of the Marshall Point Realty LLC, which is Mark and Rachel Aslett. So the property that we're looking at this evening is 132 Marshall Point Road. And so just for reference, this property is located at the very end of Marshall Point. It consists of 1.36 acres of land, and it's on the southerly side of the Batson River. Reference-wise, it looks directly over to the west end of Goose Rocks Beach. And so, in fact, really at low tide there, you can actually walk between the two when it's low tide. So the property is located within the Goose Rock Zone with a shoreland zone overlay. We also have some elements of resource protection on the property, which is what brings us here this evening. The property also has a significant amount of shoreline. Overall, there's a little over 500 feet of overall shoreline to the property. And tonight we're speaking here about 165 feet of shoreline that is in need of stabilization. We also have affecting the property 2 preliminary flood zones. We have a velocity zone with an elevation 16 and an AE zone with an elevation of 14. As far as other regulatory permits, we've filed our NERPA permits with the DEP, and that permit is currently in process with them. So with your all's permission, we have a little bit of a presentation to show. We have a video that I think will help kind of give some reference to the area that that we have concerns with. Yep. So what we're showing you here is, starting with a rock wall, we're looking along the stabilized shorefront of 132 Marshall Point. And so what you can see is that we have a combination of an existing built stone wall, and you can see where it comes over top of the ledge in a couple different areas, and we have a mix of riprap revetment that's been placed along the property. Now, beginning approximately, what you can't see is starting, within that vegetated area is where we start to see some cracks that have developed in the wall. And then as we come around the corner of the wall, there are some areas there where the wall is in a state of failure. And then following along to the edge of the lawn area there, and what we'll discuss with you all tonight is that particular area, behind that existing riprap that sticks out, has seen significant erosion to that location. And so what we have proposed for this particular area is an extension of the riprap to prevent that erosion from digging further into the property. Yep, next slide, please. So we have a couple of photographs here that just show, you know, what it looks like whenever we're experiencing a storm event or a high tide event. Next slide, please. So here you can see the portion of the wall that that has, you know, had some significant erosion, you know, undermining the wall. And this is the section that's currently in a state of failure. Next slide. The red box indicates a significant crack that's in the wall, and then that blue box is just on the other side of that that undermining that we just saw. Next slide. Some additional imagery there. You can see where it's continuing to be undermined. Next slide. So what you have here is you have a couple of these are foundation drains, perimeter drains from the home. And so what I just want to point out to you here is that you can see where on the pipe where it's faded, and so for many years that portion of the pipe there was the only bit that was exposed, and so within the past 2 years of storm events. The exposed portion, so the portion that's not faded, was covered, and so that entire area there has been eroded. You know, so you've got anywhere between a 5 to 10 foot area with maybe 2+ feet of depth that's eroded in the past number of storms. Next slide, please. And then this brings us to the end of where the proposed stabilization will come. Next slide. And again, another image there of what we're seeing. These areas here start to come apart just from overtopping. Where in these significant storm events where we've had wave and tidal action that's come up and over the wall. Next slide. So this is really what we're, the reason why we're here tonight. The areas in red are the areas that we've identified where we've had the most significant amounts of erosion that's occurred to the property. Next slide. And so in these lines here, you can see between the green and the purple, that roughly indicates the area of erosion, that we've seen over the past couple of years for storm events. So a pretty significant area that's been eroded. Next slide. So on this profile here, what I want to call your attention to, I talked about, the area of erosion and the depth of it. So if you see where the existing grade on January 11th, 2023, where that line, where you see that purple line, and then directly above it, the existing grade on November 10th, 2022. So you see there's that, there's that large gap in between those two lines. And so that's the amount of, the amount of soil that's eroded. Next slide. And so now I'm gonna turn this over to Kelsey. Kelsey's engineer on staff with Walsh, and I'm gonna let her speak to the repair for this property.
Hello. So starting from the bottom of the page and working our way up, so the pink section is what we are proposing, with the blue highlighted section is the existing riprap revetment. So starting at the very bottom and going up probably around 100 feet is adding riprap around 4 to 5 foot diameter stones of what's very similarly already there. And we're just going to add riprap to it and boost the height up to approximately the same level as the existing seawall to hopefully mitigate the waves overtopping the wall. Then, where the section of the wall has been cracked and undermined, we want to remove that section of the wall and replace that with the riprap revetment and have it go across that eroded bank and wrap around, with the size of the riprap decreasing as we get towards the end. Next slide, please. So to show kind of a cross section with it, you can see at the bottom that section C is what we'll be adding to in front of the wall, and then as we get past the wall, it's going to be very similar, just without the wall there, and then slowly decrease in size as it wraps around that bank. And it's going to have like a 1 to 1.5 slope, and it's going to meet the top of the seawall at that elevation of 14.
Can you just tie us back to where sections A, B, and C are on the previous drawing again? We're looking at three things down. They were a little different.
Yep.
Tie that back.
So A is at that top, and then it goes B, and then it goes C down below. Could you point to it? Yeah, that's
we
A. Below it is B, and right
Thank
there
you.
is cross section.
Yeah, I can see it now. Thank you.
So before you leave that, so, the blue riprap is gonna remain,
Yep.
and then you're gonna add the purple or pink.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So, question, does this in any way change the high water mark for that property owner?
Like the HAT.
I believe in the state of Maine that the high tide mark is the owner's property, and below that is the public's property. Is that accurate?
So all of the activity that's proposed, Scott, is up above the hat.
Okay. Thank you.
So you're not planning to do anything on the upper portion between the blue and the pink areas?
No, it has quite a bit of sand there, and we haven't been seeing a lot of erosion of that sand over the past like 2-3 years now. It's mostly just the edge of lawn that's being eroded along with the vegetation being ripped out. But the sand there has been quite consistent.
And that's at high storm levels, it's coming up around the existing and swooshing in and
Yep.
eroding. Got it.
And it's right on the edge of that river, so that river is coming down quite heavily sometimes.
So I think I read that the river is actually transporting, sand into that area, right?
Yes.
So you don't lose anything there?
Not sand-wise, no.
Okay.
Just lawn.
But the lawn's gonna become a beach.
Yeah.
Are you planning to tie in those boulders to anchor them?
They have a detail on that,
Yeah, I thought I saw something in there.
yeah,
The usual anchors.
the usual pin.
Yeah.
Are you adjusting the existing revetment at all, or it's just?
If anything, the top 1 or 2 stones
Okay.
to make sure they fit properly.
Thanks.
What about those boulders that look like they're spread out? They've been moved around by the tides. Are you planning to make use of those?
The ones that are further down, no, we weren't planning on touching anything that is below the HAT or that's further down on the wall.
Okay.
And there was a building, a structure down at the lower end, what was that?
I think that is like a boat shed.
Okay. All right. I mean, that hasn't been affected by it, it's still above the hat.
Yep,
Thank you. It's just that erosion thing.
yep.
Okay.
Are there any drains in there for water that's topped over to bring it back through the wall?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Are you aware of any? Any drains on the other side of the wall to bring the water through the other side?
No, we're not aware of any, existing drainage that's on the back side, of the wall. And certainly once the, revetment goes, into place, it won't need any type of drainage. I mean, we'll follow the typical detail with the drainage fabric. but it doesn't, it doesn't require, there's enough voids in there to allow for, any drainage to occur.
Well, in fact, that's one of the benefits of removing that damaged portion of the existing wall. You'll get dirt flow through the revetment. So removing the existing wall is a good idea, yeah.
Could you say something about where the neighbors are and how you'll get access to this when these boulders are brought in, and what's the workflow look like?
So I believe the construction access is going to be going off of their own driveway, and would you mind going back to the existing conditions slide? Go back, like, I think it's 2 or 3 slides. Right here is good. So it's just going to go where above the house and wrap around and go through their lawn is the construction access. So it shouldn't be
Thank you.
disruptive to the neighbors.
So no issues with the neighboring properties at all?
Yep.
Thanks.
Not gonna run over break a sewer line or anything when you drive it.
Better not be a sewer.
Sewer line.
Well, it's just sewer.
Yeah.
Same existing.
So we've been in contact with, with Public Works and the sewer department regarding that. So, everyone's aware that, that there's a force main that's located there. And so we've
You'll protect that?
we've come upon an agreement, and just in terms of how that construction is going to be handled. So, everyone's aware, of the location of it, and the contract will be made aware, and Public Works and sewer department will be involved whenever the work begins. But, in terms of access, it's actually probably one of the easiest
Yeah.
properties to get access to, because you've got it's just right off the end of the driveway, to back down and around.
And no fill of any magnitude? Yeah?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Tom, you ready for a motion on this?
Are we out of
Any other
questions?
questions?
I have a few more comments, yeah.
Okay.
So, this looks really good. Did have a couple of, on page 2 of your application, could you put the phone number and the email of the Marshall Point Realty LLC in there, just for completeness?
Yep, yeah, we'll make sure and get that
All right,
updated.
thank you. And then, okay, on the contact information page, which is back a couple of, so for my address, it's actually Suite 19-322. I mean, they know me up there, so I get it, but it's, strictly speaking, it should be 322. And you got 332?
I think we must have pulled that off of the last application that
I
we had,
think
because I
so.
think it was the same.
Yes.
Yeah, we had the same number there.
Yeah.
Yep, we'll update that.
All right, thank you. And then on the next page, the authorization letter, by reading farther into the application, I know that Mr. Aslett is a trustee, but could you make sure to add his title to this sheet? Just, it asks for it.
Yep, we can add trustee to his signature.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then, then I did have some comments on the drawings. Let me just refresh my memory here. Let's see here. I think the details are good, one of my concerns was about the size of the riprap. In the application, you say you're gonna use 4 feet diameter in some locations and 5 feet diameter in some locations. That's a D50. I think you should specify D50, but on your drawing here, you show 3 to 4 feet diameter. Well, when you get down to 3 feet, that's like a ton, that's like a 1-ton rock. And you've already got failing 1-ton rock. So my suggestion is we specify D50 as 4 feet and to 5, well, actually, you've got actually 2 zones, right? You got D50 of 4 feet and D50 of 5 feet. And, comma, my second suggestion is that you supplement that rock size with a weight, because I know you're gonna go to some quarry somewhere and you're gonna request these rocks. So you may wanna make sure they give you the weight you're looking for, and they should stamp it on each rock. Just a suggestion. Then, I know we've had a lot of discussions about stainless steel, so I know duplex might be difficult to get, but I think in your detail where you're specifying the pin, you've got stainless steel. I think you should specify 316 if you can't get duplex, because there's a bunch of other stainless out there that's gonna be cheaper than 316. And I'm glad you're gonna coat it with epoxy. Anyway, that's it. Well, I guess my other question is, so I know you're stopping this. I looked on the map, and this is sort of like out there all by itself, out on a little promontory. So you're extending the wall for current conditions, but are you not concerned about future conditions where you might need to further extend it around to make sure it dips away from it's the Batson River there, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know, just suggesting maybe curl it around so that, I don't know, the flow from the Batson River is diverted away from the property. This is a configuration issue. And then also I noticed on your presentation, you have that house next to it covered in the blue weather wrapping. Is anything you're doing here going to affect the erosion on their property? I mean, no?
No.
Nothing? Okay.
No, we're at the opposite end of the property.
Okay, all right, so
Yep.
that's it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Mike? George?
I have one curiosity question here. I notice on the abutters list, even though you shaded it in, you didn't include lot 3134, and when I looked it up, it doesn't seem to have an owner. Is
Yeah.
that just no man's land?
No, it's not no man's land. It's actually, it's a separate parcel that is attached to one of the ones that were notified.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But doesn't show an ownership?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have a technical explanation as to why the map shows it that way, but I do know that that particular parcel is owned by the abutting parcel directly above it, and so they have been notified.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, so can I have a motion, I guess?
Yeah, I would move that this application is complete.
I'll second that.
All right, so I'll take a vote.
Approve.
Yes.
Yes?
Approved.
Approve.
Okay. So, the only thing I need is,
I'll do it.
okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna read that.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Mr. Rock.
So we have a case manager.
Rock and dock.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
See you again. Okay, that brings us to 231001 Wilds District subdivision, Beechwood Development, and Michael Tademo Wydant. And there he is. This is the one we walked into a few weeks back, right?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Mike Tademo Wieland from Teradyne Consultants. With me tonight is Jeff Bowley, who is the applicant, and Jim Logan, who is the wetlands scientist and the person who delineated the natural resources on this site. And we brought Jim along because much of the questions surrounding this project have to do with the natural resources. So just a quick recap. This is a 4.1 acre site. We're in the village residential zone. Minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet. There's about half an acre of freshwater wetlands on the site. As we saw at the site walk, there's the man-made pond out behind the house, the abutting house on Wells District Road, and the drainage channel that leads across the site and drains from the front of the lot towards the back. And we looked at these features at the sidewalk. We're here with a few updates. There were some questions at the last meeting regarding areas that would be allowed to be cleared, and what areas would be allowed to be cleared and what areas would not allowed to be cleared within 250 feet of the potential vernal pool. This plan here shows those areas. The areas in dark green are the areas that will remain untouched. They will be deed restricted, so no clearing will take place in those areas. And the areas at the front of the lot will allowed to be allowed to be cleared. And so, in total, again, this is a 4.1 acre site. The total cleared area that includes the right-of-way and these three lots is only about 1.78 acres. So 2.3 acres will remain undeveloped. So more than half the site will remain forested. Within that 250-foot critical, what's called the critical terrestrial habitat surrounding the potential vernal pool on the site is about 90,000 square feet. Within lot 1, about 718 square feet will be allowed to be cleared within that critical terrestrial habitat. Lot 2, just shy of 9,000 square feet, and lot 3, a little over 12,000 square feet. So in total, if add those numbers up, they remain less than that 25% that's allowed. So remember, we talked about this before. Within that 250 foot area measured from the edge of the vernal pool, the area on this project site, 25% is allowed to be cleared with a permit by rule from the DEP. So that's what we would be proposing. So the next set of plans that are submitted will have this documented tonight, documented as shown on this plan tonight.
Does that include the road?
I'm sorry?
Does that include the road area?
So the road, there's a very, very small piece of the right-of-way that's within 250 feet. It's only, I would say, 50 square feet or so. And yes, it does include. So those calculations do include that as well. I think the majority of the let me say we've received peer review comments from Acorn Engineering, and we're working through those. A lot of them, if you folks have read them, have to do with questions about the pond that is adjacent to this site and that ditch that runs through the site. That's why I brought Jim here tonight to go over the work he's done to verify sort of the how those are defined under state law and their whether or not they're jurisdictional under state law. And beyond that, we're working through some of the technical comments from Acorn. But nothing I saw would lead me to believe that anything major is going to change. It really has to do, I think the majority of the questions really are surrounding the natural resources. So I'm going to hand it over to Jim, and he's going to sort of talk through what he's been doing since we last met with regard to these resources, and then we'll be here to answer questions. Thanks.
Good evening, folks. Thank you. I appreciate the attention tonight. I wish by tonight I would have had a field determination form back from Anna Smith, the DEP staffer that I met with on site to review the specific portions of the wetland delineation that were brought up in question. Craig Burgess, I believe, was the review engineer that first raised the question about a wetland of special significance, a WAS as they're known, the acronym. That would have involved a 75-foot setback from the pond or any wetland attached to it if 20,000 more square feet of impounded area and emergent vegetation was found in any one location. We've proven, I believe, to Anna's satisfaction that that's not the case. We have far less than 20,000. So we don't believe this meets the definition of a WAS per Natural Resources Protection Act standards. I'm citing the NERPA, which is the acronym for the body of regulations that the DEP administers for wetlands protection, oversees activities in and around wetlands. We carefully reviewed a section of drainage, which I feel strongly as a licensed soil scientist is a drainage ditch. And the reason why Anna got hung up and wouldn't finalize the form is when she went to the USGS maps, she was able to find a recent version of the USGS map that included a blue line stream that went out of this pond, shown on the USGS, and connecting to the pond down on pasture, what was it? Rocky Pasture Lane, when in fact there's no connection between the two. And I say that because Anna and I literally went down over the edge of the banking where the weir was. You all saw the cinder block weir. And just over the bank, whatever channel there was just spread right out and went away. And so the drainage may eventually get to the other pond, but there's no connection by a stream. So I personally, as a professional, I feel like it was mismapped. Anna still has to do some more soul searching. There's a body of or a wording in the NERPA that speaks to drainage ditches that have naturalized. Hence, there's a room for some interpretation here. She cited the part of the 5-part litmus test for what a stream is that includes mineralized channel. Parts of that section, not next to the pond, but closer to where it goes over the bank and where the weir is, she started to have the impression like this starts to look like a stream to her. So the fact that it was on a USGS map was not known to her during our first visit. Suffice to say, she didn't want to produce something tonight that was not complete. However, I don't believe the channel, should we find one and determine that it's a stream, will likely be less than 100 feet long to begin with, which might incur a 75-foot setback around it as a oval. But that's yet to be determined. I don't think it's connected to the pond. Therefore, I don't think the pond will have a setback. I'm waiting for Anna to get back to me with specifics. However, in speaking with Mike, permits by rule are available for grading activities less than 75 feet to that drainage, even if it's a short section that somebody determines is a piece of a stream with no connection to the pond or downstream by, I guess, by technical default. We could argue what the value of that stream might or might not be, or that short segment. But worst case scenario is it won't affect the layout that Mike has put together with the 3 lots and the placement of homes in the fashion he has shown it. So I'm plowing ahead to get her to visit the site just as quickly as I can before snow.
How close is the cleared area that you have there to this ditch?
Yeah, so what Jim is talking about, that if it is with a stream, there is this 75-foot jurisdictional setback, which can be, like Jim mentioned, that can be reduced to 25 feet with a PBR. So that means you're taking measures to install
So, but the
erosion
cleared
control
areas-
measures.
The cleared area is within 75
The
feet.
cleared area is within 75 feet, but it's not within 25
25.
feet. So if it's a stream, it would require a PBR, a permit by rule from DEP. If it's not a stream, obviously no permit by rule would be required. But either way, again, a permit by rule, I don't know how familiar you folks are with those. I suspect you're pretty familiar with them. It's essentially a notification to the DEP saying, hey, we're going to undertake this activity within 75 feet of a stream, and we're going to follow the rules in the PBR, which are, again, installing erosion control measures to protect the stream. And there will be no disturbance within 25 feet of the stream. That gets essentially submitted to DEP, and becomes approved within 2 weeks, without any sort of formal review and approval process. So, again, to summarize, whether or not there is a short section of stream won't impact the lot layout, and it won't impact the cleared areas that are shown on this plan.
What are the chances you can reduce those cleared areas? You don't need it all for a house.
So for a house and lawn area, I would, they're gonna be small developed areas. I mean, we're talking 9,000 square feet of lawn, driveway, and house footprint.
Well, these days, lawns are not on,
There's a certain safety zone around a house. You would expect a typical, even the DEP staff typically would expect a 20-foot apron, 20 to 25 feet out around the foundation of the house, a trees drop zone and so forth.
I understand a tree drop zone since I've had one on my house, but,
So I would say these are maximum clearing limits that will be
yeah, I was
shown on the
gonna
plan.
say
If-
9,000 square feet is still, more than you need for a house and even clear area around.
And are we really only talking about one site, Mike?
They're all kind of in that 10,000 square foot range. Yeah.
Is it 9 or 10?
They vary, right? Each one is a little different. I have the cleared areas listed on this plan, and again, these would be allowable while still meeting the cleared area limits of the vernal pool permit by
I
rule.
got that, but you said 9 and then you said 10, so is there one that's 11? How large are they?
Yes,
actually?
so 12. One of them is 12,
Ah,
right?
that's
So
different than 9.
thank you. Yes.
You.
Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be a lot hanging on the definition of it. It's 9, is it 12, is it a ditch, is it a stream? Is it a lot of things, and I heard soul searching. It doesn't sound like we've got a really clear, I don't have a really clear picture here.
There's some clarity. There's a possibility of one short section that might be constituted as a stream. That's it.
And I know it might not, but it might be a stream.
But all I was saying tonight and representing to the board in terms of tonight's meeting is that any outcome that she comes up with will not affect this plan in a negative fashion. It will be addressed.
Yeah, with the definitions, I know you've referred to the pond as a man-made, but I remember seeing an earlier map, there was something there. So is it man-made even if it was enlarged by, I don't know the definitions of the DEP, so I have a pond, I make it bigger, does it then default to completely man-made, or? I guess I'm not sure where we're so seem to be clear that it's man-made.
This was always a wetland. In my estimation, this was always a shrub-scrub wetland that someone hollowed out the shrub scrub veg to create a deeper impoundment over the portion of it that was nearest to the road and was gonna be most visible from a home site. That's why they didn't keep going off to the
I just
neighbor.
remember one of the earlier maps having like a pond shown on there.
I
That
think
was
there's been a
pre-
pond there as far back as I could have
But
the tax office.
Prior to the man-made bit, I thought there was a pond on one of the earlier,
There's always, there's been a pond there that we know of since the forties at least, so we're going back probably as early as the air
that
photos
was-
that we have.
yeah, so, and that was pre that house being built.
That's correct.
Yeah, so there was a pond there and it was enlarged, so does that make it, I don't know if
Doesn't-
there's a difference in the
Doesn't change the
DEP.
designation.
It doesn't matter if it's man-made or natural as far as the DEP is concerned.
It doesn't even close to approach the amount it needs to be for a naturally occurring pond. What we have is we have a group of very, very vocal neighbors who have got the ear of the board and called into question a lot of the work that was done here, which was done according to the same standards that we
I'm
use
just
for
trying to
anybody.
understand the definition.
Understood.
That it
Understood.
was there, and
And
the
the
other.
point is, a naturally occurring pond and emergent wetland adjacent to it, totaling over 20,000 square foot, would create a 75-foot setback to the entire wetland system. We didn't get close to approaching 20,000 square feet.
And-
The point I made at the site walk was that in the case of impounded ponds or man-made ponds, the definition changes, and you can then exclude the man-made part in the calculation for 20,000 square feet. We didn't need to do that. We didn't know the square footage of the pond the day of the site walk. I was guessing at it.
Yeah.
And I think that's
so-
maybe where the abutters thought he
Yeah.
didn't know what he was talking about.
Well, in my understanding of the pond, you got an outfall to this creek, drainage ditch, whatever
Right.
you want. So I got an elevation. So at some point for water to go over that outlet, it's gotta be at that elevation. And it would be at that elevation, you should figure out how big the pond is, right? Because if it gets to the point that it feeds this drainage ditch creek, that means it had to get to the elevation of that, call it weir, call it drain. So at
That's-
that point, if I do the survey, I'm under 20,000 square feet.
When you calculate that, you're looking at the historical edge of where any wooded vegetation will grow. It has nothing to do with what the weir is doing,
It has nothing
every
to do
storm
with it.
event or not. The trees that are
So the pond
terrestrial
is
will not grow in an aquatic environment. We're talking about the difference between aquatic and terrestrial. And terrestrial can include wetlands, but it's land. It's not aquatic. It's not water. So we're
in the
talking about
definition- The definition is not where my water level is, it's defined by the plants.
Yes,
It is.
yes.
It is. It's the water and the plants, but it's only the emergent plants. Those are the herbaceous ones that are not woody and that are not more than 6 feet tall, generally speaking. That's the 20,000 square foot calculation that triggers the wetland of special significance. And that would be in the case of a naturally occurring pond within a wetland or emergent vegetation adjacent to it. I typically use for the board, or the boards I go to, the big wetland that's adjacent to Sebago Lake. I just came by it today. That's alongside of Route 302. Giant cattail marsh, near the same elevation as the lake, but not lake. That's all part of that calculation of wetland of special significance. So we just didn't have enough of it on this site to trigger that. We're literally just looking at a short segment of a ditch line, whether it's naturalized enough to be a stream. The 5-part litmus test includes that the stream has to run 6 continuous months out of the year in order for the hydrology parameter to be met. That's a tough one to measure if you're not posting the guard. I'm not the frog on the side of the stream channel measuring it. There's no stream gauge on this. I don't think it's a stream. I don't think there's not a fish species that would be living there, because there's nothing on the outlet end. This pond, I showed the board, there's no inlet. There's nothing that feeds it on the uphill side. I think it's a mismap on the USGS. And I've had them before in my 35-year career. So here we're gonna wait, but the point is it doesn't affect the outcome of tonight.
Could someone point out where the easement is off the lot? Just,
The CMP
Above?
easement?
there's a drainage easement according to Acorn?
We've designated a drainage easement essentially around that ditch.
Okay.
So
You carry a microphone, please.
So it follows the alignment of the ditch where it is today. So that's a proposed drainage easement to allow runoff to flow across these lots in the future.
Into the ditch,
I'm sorry?
into that.
It is the ditch is in the center of the drainage easement.
Okay, thank you.
And no work is proposed in the ditch. It's just really an easement allowing the right of water to flow across those lots. So that it would prohibit, in the future, it would prohibit a lot owner from
Filling in the
from
ditch.
filling it in or damming it up or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm coming from. I'm not worried about whether it's man-made pond or a vernal pool or, anything like that. You've got a ditch there that fills up with water at times. You've got a vernal pool down below. It's obviously a wet area, and it's obviously a wildlife area. And I really, before I could approve, the lot size, the clearing lot, I'd want to see a critical wildlife study done. I really would, because I think that's a sensitive area in there.
What could you be more specific in what you would be, what sort of, or is there some sort of ordinance submission requirement that you're referencing that I'm not aware of?
Well, normally, when you're putting in a subdivision, you look at basically habitats and what you're dealing with. And I really don't know what we're dealing with here in terms of wildlife, in terms of turtles, salamanders, frogs, birds, and so forth. What I worry about is because there are a lot of wet areas in this around and surrounding, is that if you take down a lot of large trees, you could change the water table very quickly, and you could change the drainage very quickly. And this is where I have some issues. I think some of the neighbors have brought it up in their letters, and I think it's a valid point. Something that we don't deal with is if you clear enough so that drainage or, the road goes in and you're piling snow next to a neighbor's lot, which has been raised, and suddenly they get water in their basement and so forth. That's an issue they have to take to court. And they might win because there's a reasonableness standard, there. But it's a pain to have water coming into your house. And I think it's something that you need to look at very critically,
Okay.
how you can ameliorate that. The other thing that was brought up in a letter was headlights. And I know what a pain those can be because I've got some right across the river from me that sometimes, if I don't pull the blinds, shine right into my bedroom at night. Okay, and that can be an issue. That can be a real pain. You may want to find a way to ameliorate that. either with shrubbery or with fencing, something like that. So those are things I need to look at in the permanent plan
Okay.
that I'm really concerned about.
Those are things for the final plan, this is the preliminary. Was that-
I'm sorry, for the final plan.
Yep.
Yes, I meant for the final
Yep,
plan.
understood, great.
Sorry, lose my words there.
Sure.
So, Jeff Bowley, the applicant, Beechwood Development Fund. To clarify though, Nina, and to maybe take a step back here for a second, when we put forward a subdivision plan, both in sketch plan and in preliminary application, the process for us is to look at the standards, the ordinances, whether it be local, state, in some instances, sometimes federal, and we design to those standards. Those are the rules that are in place that we have to follow. So I appreciate and certainly understand if you would like to see these things, but is there a standard or is there language in the ordinance that requires that?
Yeah, basically, there's concern about trees in there, large trees, which are important for the watershed and important for wildlife. If you look in the subdivision regs, there are certainly standards regarding water management, storm management. I think, I'm not going to say this is terrible, because I think you've really worked on your design very carefully. And, I'm looking at it in terms of, what can a developer do? How can we, look at this and approve it? But also in terms of you have a small site there and you're surrounded by houses and you're in a wildlife area, and what's the best way we can go forward with this? There are some concerns, like blasting I don't worry about because the state standards are so strict. And I know from blasting on my house that, the people who are blasting are going to be running to all the neighbors' house to check things as they do it. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, there are town ordinances in place relative to both
Absolutely.
blasting and to stormwater runoff as well,
Yes.
that are enforced on through the code office.
Yeah, but I also know that, I have a neighbor who, an abutting neighbor changed the drainage because they didn't like all the wet on their lawn and so forth, and now she's having a real problem with the water running off onto her property and doesn't like it very much. So, if we approve something, if the code enforcement office approves something and so forth, then we're done with it, and the neighbors are left with what we approve, and their resource then, at that point, is the courts, really, or the code enforcement office, if they have a real serious problem because the design was wrong.
Well, I guess I would maybe disagree with that a little bit, Nina, because any house that is approved by the code enforcement office has to meet certain standards, and there's language in there that states that runoff, from potentially change in grading on any lot, any undeveloped lot, or for that matter, for tearing down an existing structure and rebuilding and regrading, can't negatively impact an abutting property. I mean, we deal with that on a building basis every day. So, I mean, that's a standard that's set within the code enforcement office and is enforced by the code enforcement office.
Yeah, and I understand that, but sometimes things can happen. And so we're looking to make sure that, the best possible design goes in there that isn't going to have things happen.
Yeah, and we couldn't agree. I mean, I think Jeff certainly tries to build responsibly, especially
Yes,
in this
I know
town
that. I know
in which
that.
he lives.
Hey,
And he, asks a lot of me to make sure that things are done at a very high level.
guess
I think you folks also rely on Acorn Engineering. They're a very reputable firm who are reviewing our stormwater management plan in great detail and is meeting the standards of the ordinance, which says you can't, nothing is going, this development isn't going to cause flooding or erosion downstream of it. So I think these are sort of the guardrails put in place, and are they perfect? No, I don't think there is a perfect system out there, but that's the
Right.
system we have.
What I'm trying to do is bring you my concerns, what I see looking at this, so that when you put together the final plan, you're looking at it too.
Yeah,
And coming
and
up.
I appreciate that. I do. I think your comments are very thoughtful. With regard to wildlife, we have reached out to Inland Fisheries and Wildlife and received a letter back from them. And so we will certainly provide that in the next submission we have.
Okay.
So I would suggest, just in deference to the applicant, that what you're speaking about, you can identify in codes where they can go and just make sure that they're not near them, but fully doing the right thing by that code. I would just suggest that, so they can kind of clear it down to make sure
Yeah,
they
and,
can get as close as they can to what you want.
and I think they've worked before with the subdivision regs and read them very carefully. So they know where I usually have concerns.
Yes.
Especially in the environment. But I think I just wanted to bring up some things that I saw from letters and just from reading through Acorn.
Sure.
And the headlight issue is an issue for neighbors. It really is, when you're
Understand.
this close
Understood.
to other houses. So, and we've had that happen before, down at Goose Rocks Beach, when they were putting in the subdivision there, you know, in terms of the road.
Yes.
So we've addressed it before.
Yes. I remember.
Okay, anyone else, or are you?
Ed?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Just for Mr. Logan, I know you said you're waiting on Anna. I didn't really get her full name and.
Smith, Anna Smith.
And who does she
She's
work
the
for?
DEP Field Services staffer.
Gee.
She is now the one end of the Portland office that's covering the town of Kennebunkport. I think she has most of York County. They're assigned towns. And I know Anna
you.
was sad to see Werner leave because she had worked pretty closely with Werner in the past and the code enforcement office.
And then, I know you said, thank you, Jim. Mike, you said that the Acorn comments are being addressed. When do you expect to have those addressed?
Certainly in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So I would certainly for our next submittal, we would expect to have those.
Your next submittal of the preliminary application?
Well, we would hope, in which we've seen in the past, this board grant preliminary approval conditioned upon addressing those peer review comments prior to final.
We have done that in the
Yeah,
past.
so that's what
You're right.
we would hope that would happen tonight as well.
I think that, at least my read of the Acorn comments were that they were substantial. And I would be reluctant to approve the preliminary application. In fact, I would suggest that the public meeting be extended until those comments were addressed in writing, so that we wouldn't go any further.
Understood. I
I
guess,
mean, there's, you've looked at some of
I
them, right?
have.
And I know you're trying to minimize them, and
Well, I'm not trying to
they may all end
minimize
up going away, but Acorn estimates that the pond has an overall water surface area of approximately 36,000 square foot. What? Jim, you haven't read these, I guess, but. No, I haven't seen them. I'm just telling,
Yeah.
I'd like to see these addressed.
Understood.
And if they're perfunctory, then it should be easy to address them, but if they're not, as you say, they're a reputable firm, we rely on them, they've done super work, I think, in the past, and this seems to be of that same quality, so please.
Yeah,
That would be my position as
Yeah,
a
and
board member, and I don't speak for the board here.
and if I may, I'm not trying to minimize them. What I was trying to convey is, I think at least in my opinion, the majority of the comments had to do with the natural resources and whether or not they were either a wetland of special significance or a stream.
I agree with you that a large number of them have to do with the natural resources, and that's such an important aspect of this that I think it needs to be dealt with at this
Understood.
phase and not move forward with it. And again, I'll be interested in hear what the rest of the board thinks about that. For my own edification, I'm just moving on now, but what is the reference for the 5-point litmus test? That was a new one on me. I'll go review it, as homework.
Again, I'll repeat myself. I was
Please.
citing the Natural Resources Protection Act, NRPA.
NRPA.
And the Wetland and Water Bodies Law that includes the 5-part litmus test.
If I go Google this, if I go Google NRPA, I'll get the 5-part litmus test. I'll
Google
find
river,
this.
stream, or brook, and you'll come up with the 5
River,
parts.
stream, or brook. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and you need to have a certain number of the criteria all in one place to be able to say it's a river, stream, or brook. That includes things like a mineralized channel, action by water.
I understand. I just wanted to go back and read the source material.
Good,
Jim.
that's fine.
That's good. I think that's all I had. I was going to ask, I think you've answered my question. I know this is a public hearing tonight, and where you didn't come with the answers to the Acorn study, I wanted to know what you had in mind for tonight, but I think you've told me you were hoping to get preliminary approval.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
hear what the public has to say.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, given the subdivision standards and DEP standards, we're comfortable that they're met to a large extent. And most of the peer review comments, again, we're confident in the natural resource questions. I understand we have a little more work to do to provide some documentation of that, but a lot of the technical questions in the Acorn document aren't going to change the subdivision plan. So that's where we were coming from.
Thank you. That's all I had, Tom.
Mike?
No, my concerns were really around the stormwater management, and that has been discussed and will continue to be discussed,
Okay, George?
so.
Larry, anything?
No additional comments. No, not yet.
Okay, so, I guess,
Public hearing?
I'm sorry?
Public hearing?
I guess we'll have to start a public hearing. Now, the rules for the public hearing are that you don't keep asking the same question over and over again, So we'll just be happy to hear from the public in this, and as far as you have to realize the process, this is a preliminary subdivision plan. Goes through an approval cycle. We approve it, we send a letter to Mr. Bowley, I guess, and say, here's the things we expect to see in the final plan, but there's no formal finding of facts. There's just such a letter. Then, a month later or so, they come back with the final plan. And it isn't until the final plan goes through an additional set of public hearings before it finally gets approved or not. So, anyway, let me request anyone wishes to speak. Please identify yourself and
Good evening, Board. My name is Chris Copey from Copey Environmental, and I'm here on behalf of some of the abutters to the project. My role has just been to provide some guidance with some of the regulatory implications to the resources that were mapped on the property. So, really tonight, I think my role is just to provide some additional comments to make sure that the board, just hears all the comments and provide some sort of a, connection between some of the abutter concerns, the applicant, the goals of the project and the planning board, but,
Do we have a letter from you?
I did produce a letter to one of the abutters. I'm not sure if that was forwarded to you folks or not. Okay. It brings up, I want to bring up basically, is there a time limit, by the way?
No.
No.
Okay. I'm going to be fast.
We'd like to go home by 10, though.
Yeah. Basically, just want to bring up a couple of points that were brought up in the Acorn report, which I actually came up with the same opinion before they actually review the project. And it's regarding the stream and the vernal pool. I did hear from the applicant and their consultants, which was good, that they decided to get some an opinion from the DEP staff, which is good protocol. That actually is more like a third-party review by the state in case there's differing opinions. And I'm not here to, I didn't go to the site, and nor do I care to go to the site right now. I'm not here to question the mapping or anything, just to make sure that everything's being reported, like I think it should, based on what's been submitted here. But regarding the stream, you know, and I'm not sure where that is gonna go with a determination, but I think it's important to note, and I'm not an engineer, but the stream looks like it has a pretty wide channel, and that it may have been a blue line stream at one day, you know, one time in history, but the fact is that whether or not the DEP is gonna determine that it's a stream or not, the stream doesn't care if it's regulated or not. It's gonna flow. So I think it's important to consider that, you know, if it's not a stream, if it's determined to be not a stream, that basically gives the applicant the right to clear right up to the edge of it. And I think that's, you know, I think that could cause some problems with runoff and more water volume down below to the property, because, you know, once you take out the trees, once you take out the duff layer, there's no infiltration, there's no percolation of water. More water is going to be going off site. It's just soil science. So I just wanted to bring that point up. The other point is regarding the vernal pool. I wasn't aware that the applicant was coming up with some of the clearing calculations. The most recent plan that I have in front of me, it looked like it was just a building envelope, but apparently they're going to be coming up with some calculations, which is good. I did want to note that on Lot 3, though, and again, we're assuming that it's a significant vernal pool. So if they were to go out in the spring and determine that it's not significant, the critical terrestrial habitat goes away. But because we are assuming that it's significant vernal pool, we have to assume that it's going to be regulated by the DEP. So if the planning board's going to be reviewing this project now before the spring, proper permits need to be filed, which, you know, the applicant mentioned that they're going to need to file a permit by rule, which is good. But the one thing that I didn't hear, and maybe they are planning on doing that, is the small wetland impact that's in Lot 3 that I see on the plan is within the critical terrestrial habitat. So that actually requires a DEP wetlands permit, unless you can get a waiver. So I understand they're gonna file some permits to the Corps and a permit by rule for the clearing, but that's actually gonna need a wetlands permit from the state because it's wetland impact within the habitat. So that's the only thing I didn't notice on some of the documentation. So I think that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Scott Edmonds. I'm an attorney with Bergen & Parkinson, and I am here on behalf of some of the abutters. I did send a letter. It was sent to late this evening. I have a copy of it here, or late this afternoon before this meeting. I have a copy of it here. I will say, though, a lot of it has to do with the concerns that the abutters have that are set forth in the Acorn report, and expecting to hear that some of those would have been addressed tonight and then hearing that some of them are going to be addressed, it feels a little bit like this whole process is somewhat premature in terms of not being able to respond to what those ACORN concerns would be. That said, I would encourage the board to sort of take that into consideration and to extend this, because right now we don't know what the results are from what the applicant's proposals would be to address the concerns set forth in the ACORN report. To identify those or re-identify those, I think that there's still some factual questions regarding the pond. I know that Mr. Logan has expressed his opinion, and that it's a man-made pond. We haven't heard any, but then we're also hearing that it has existed, and what the setbacks for that would be. I feel like there's just a lot of unknowns out there that makes it actually difficult for abutters to respond or to ensure that the process is being followed. I don't doubt that their goal is to follow it, but we also need to sort of review what they're going to do and then have an opportunity to respond to that proposal or
information.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
corrected.
Yeah.
Potentially, right.
Yeah. So it feels a little bit like I'm going to say a bunch of things that are basically outdated because they said they're going to correct it, but we don't know what that correction is going to be, so I don't know how to respond to those.
Well, to some extent, what Mr. Francis mentioned originally is likely to happen from this board, which is we will expect the reply from the applicant as far as the comments from ACORN.
But, and so I guess my suggestion is, because we are really not any further along than we were, other than a couple, that this gets, essentially that I would argue that conditional or preliminary approval will not be granted at this point, and that we sort of extend this.
Yes, we may well extend what it amounts to extending the public hearing to a later time, at which point we have the answers from ACORN, or a significant piece of the answers from ACORN. But that's
But that could be addressed in the final.
but that will, yeah, for
application.
sure, the final has to be,
I mean, and there would be another public hearing
yes.
so that,
But
there would be time for that to be addressed.
the argument I'm making is that as the abutters, we don't get the opportunity to address the preliminary. We get one shot at it, not two, which is what the statute calls for, and the procedure calls for 2 opportunities to review, not just one.
Just to clarify, make sure I understand Nina's point, I think I do. It's not unreasonable at all that the applicant's response to the ACORN's comment on a point or more than one point would be, we'll deal with this in the final, okay? But to say that blanket, essentially, that all of them, we're not going to get any response until the final, I think is incorrect and improper, and as I think Attorney Edmonds is pointing out, doesn't really give the public a chance to comment on what the applicant is doing here. The ACORN has voiced a number of the same concerns that the public has voiced, and let's just deal with it now and get it down in writing, and no reason to postpone that discussion. I don't think.
Well, I think there is. It extends the time that the applicant has to work on things, and it only gives them a couple of weeks when you extend the public hearing. But if you give an approval with the restriction that everything's going to be addressed, and they know it has to be addressed, then it gives time for people to look at things. they address it, they come up with a new plan. You're going to have, basically, with the final, you're going to have your first initial review anyway, and the public's going to get to look at that and the answers. And then it's going to be several weeks before they come back. So it's really more risky in many ways if we go ahead and approve now and let them put everything in one basket in the final. But then you will see what the plan is going to be.
But we're going to do the final anyway.
Yes, you're going to do the final anyway, but I mean, you're just.
Why is it
extending
riskier,
the-
why isn't it riskier to put it
Because
off?
they're putting all their eggs at that point in the final, in one basket, basically. Whereas here, you know, you could leave it up to the applicant in some ways, see what they think about that, and say, okay, do you want, you know, to address these questions now and let the public work on it and on the preliminary application? Or do you think that, you know, you can address them so well that the public will be satisfied, or you'll only have minor points to address in the final? It depends on how fast the developer wants to go in many ways.
Well,
It's a minor point, but there is the possibility that the board does not approve a preliminary application.
Absolutely.
That is a possibility. So it's not necessarily prolonging the inevitable, because there is no inevitability. I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but it's just, a final plan is not inevitable.
Correct.
That's true, that's true. But I think what we've done in the past, basically, is say, we'll approve the preliminary plan, but you're gonna have to address these questions, and we have to be satisfied with the final.
That's correct.
I don't think we've ever had a case where we had
Haven't.
Acorn Engineering or an independent contractor assess a preliminary application and not have the applicant comment on it, respond to it in writing and make revisions to the plan. And I think that's what's unprecedented
Yeah,
here
prior-
in my
prior
tenure.
to.
I think we may have.
I don't believe so.
Not where it's gone to peer review.
Correct.
yeah, we've, on a few times we have fairly minor Acorn comments. We've gotten them to agree and,
Push that.
and just push it out. But often we look for a response to the Acorn comments before we approve the preliminary. We've done both ways.
I didn't ask earlier, but the other input, I wasn't clear on. We've asked the DEP, this Anna Smith, to issue her opinion on it. When has that been promised?
It has not been promised. As I left her this afternoon by text, I've offered wide open time frame in the next 2 days prior to getting 6 inches or 8 inches of snow on Sunday night to look at this before snow flies. She hasn't gotten back to me. I think that would put to bed the field ID, and probably within a day after she makes one more site visit, we'll have the form. It's a field identification form, a standard type of form that generally goes back into the code office, and it's what the towns can use to stick into the file as a result of her site visit. I would expect that within a business day of her getting back out there, but I can't tell you tonight, standing here, because I have an open text that I'm waiting to get from her, hopefully tomorrow morning during business hours. And I'm going to adjust my schedule accordingly to be there to meet her so that we don't guess even more because of 8 inches of snow cover. Because that's, and you know, it's a heck of a time of year to do any kind of a wildlife study.
So you may not
I
have
wasn't
that
asking
within
her
2
for
weeks.
her wildlife.
No, I will have
You will
Anna's
have it.
answer, yes, that is definitely. Matter of fact, I would expect to have that before the end of the business week, next week is over. Okay? That's my best guess.
All right.
I'm not sure I understood. The answer to my question was within 2 weeks?
Again, Anna did not respond to me specifically about a
understand that.
schedule. I said, I expect to hear from her tomorrow. I hope to get this done by next week and have an answer by next week.
Thank you.
So, just sort of continuing on behalf of some of the concerns that have been raised by the abutters, just kind of one point that's somewhat significant and hasn't really been seemingly addressed, is that if you look at that stream that goes to Rocky Pasture Lane area, that stream runs, I know that they've said it runs to the pond towards Wilds District Road, but it also runs across Wilds District, across Rocky Pasture Road. There's a point that it, sort of inflex point, and so there is going to be, regardless of what, there is going to be significant runoff of, and that stream runs 6 months a year. So to determine here in the winter what the flowage of the stream would be, I am not a soil scientist. I'm not going to pretend that I can state that. But the people who live there say that it flows 6 months of the year. So it is, and along the same lines that pond has existed for, again, the pond, the one that we're talking about might be a wetland of special significance. There is anecdotal evidence that that pond has existed in its current state for a long time. So there has not been any evidence brought. It's been mentioned that it's man-made. I know there's some discussion of how big it is and whether or not it's a wetland of special significance. I guess that the answer to that will be coming from the DEP, Anna Smith, the field staffer. But again, what we're asking is, we haven't seen this information. We don't, as the abutters, don't have an opportunity to review and respond to this information. So we're at a position where we're, kind of, it's hard for us to discuss something because we were provided information and now we're kind of told, oh, well, that's old, but allow us to come back and fix it, but then you only get one chance to review it and go look at it. Where it's basically putting the abutters, I'd say it's sort of removing one of the opportunities for the abutters to participate in the process. I mean, yes, we're on the agenda, so you can point to it, but we're not able to address the response to the ACORN concerns. We're not able to address the determination that it's a wetland of special significance or any of those of our concerns that have been raised tonight and previously, as well as in the ACORN report.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Somebody beat you to it, sorry.
Sorry. Good evening. I'm Ron Kane. We own 14 Rocky Pasture Lane, which is the property that Scott was talking about, the stream flow. There's two culverts that go underneath our driveway. Both flow for more than 6 months out of the year. They both come out of that development. Our main concern is that the overflow, if it's developed, and then the impact to the wildlife in our ponds. Our ponds are probably well over 20,000 square feet, lots of cattails, lots of activity, lots of wildlife activity. And that pond, there's two of them actually, that are fed by that stream. So that's our main concern. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I would assume that a DEP or any kind of study would see what the flow is of that pond at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm James Vasenka, Mary Beth. We live at 47 Wilds District Road, and I just want to thank the planning board for bringing up the two concerns that are greatest to us, which is the potential, our property's really close to the road that they're planning to put in, potential blasting and the damage it might cause our foundation. And also drainage. Drainage is really, really important. It's a very wet space underneath there, and without that proper drainage, I'm really concerned about the mess it's going to create underneath our house.
Anyone else? Okay, so what I want to talk
Online?
Online.
with the board here is
Online?
what we want.
Public went online?
Public online?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Is there anybody online?
Attendees, but no hands are raised.
Oh, good, thank you. Okay, so I guess Mr. Francis suggests we, I guess let me let Mike or,
Were you thinking, is the board thinking of continuing the public hearing?
that was the question, if, how quickly you guys could come up with, not necessarily every answer to every Acorn question, but how quickly you could come up with a response.
Yeah, when is the next meeting, I guess? I guess I'm going to flip it around and say, when do you need me to submit it for?
The next meeting is the 17th of,
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now, and then there's 3 weeks after that for the next meeting after that.
Do you have a quick inventory of what's outstanding?
You gotta be in a week ahead of the meeting.
Yeah.
Stuff, so about a week.
And do you think we'll have?
I'll scream real loud. What else
No.
can I do? I think Anna is trying to help, so I think she will make an effort.
Okay, we could have that turned around for the.
And what documents are outstanding? There's the DEP, there's Acorn.
So it would be a determination, this field determination letter from DEP, and it would be a response letter to Acorn's
Those are the only two
comments.
things. Okay, thank you.
And the response would be for the stream or the stream and the pond?
Yes, that would be the field determination from DEP.
Both of them?
Yes.
My desire with
Yes.
Anna was to have her address every question that was raised, including the vernal pool habitat, which we may study in the spring of the year.
Okay.
By the way, she was very happy to hear that we were treating it the way we were supposed to, as a significant one at this time, and that had been shown on the plan also.
And the DEP also includes a wildlife assessment, or just wetland delineation?
No, so we've reached out to the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
Right.
And they have reviewed their database of endangered and threatened rare, threatened, and endangered habitat, and come back, and I'll provide this letter with this next submittal, but to summarize, it says they don't believe that the project will have an impact on any rare, threatened, or endangered
So that's the
habitats.
third document.
Yeah, well, that would be, I include that as part of the Acorn response, because Acorn brought that up. So anything Acorn has requested would be an attachment to that.
I'm still hoping that in the course of answering the Acorn questions, I'll see a response to the question I raised at the first meeting, which was that it looked like that the stormwater maintenance proposal was going to require a homeowner intervention every time you got a rainstorm over 1 inch, which doesn't seem practicable at all.
Right.
So I'm hoping to hear that there's another approach.
Understood.
Okay, so I think we're looking for,
You want to
I
extend
want
it?
to extend we're going to extend the public hearing to the next meeting,
Okay.
which is the 17th.
Which will be after we have the Acorn, the responses to those
Give
three
you guys
items.
a week to get us the responses so that we have a week, and our
So,
butter friends have a week.
so the response to the Acorn, this letter from the Miss Anna,
Right.
and then the response on the storm, or a revised stormwater management plan for the HOA.
That may be consistent with what Acorn's already asked for.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Reading
either,
between the
but-
lines, I couldn't
Yeah.
tell.
But those are the three things that we're looking for in addition.
Thanks, Mike, yes.
Yes, and the question is, if we extend the public hearing should we extend it to the first meeting in February, which should be a month from now?
I think we'll know that in a week. We'll know that in a week. If those 3 items are available in a week, then I think we can have this meeting the next meeting.
Yeah.
Right. So we will,
We'll endeavor to.
we will endeavor to do that. I would like a motion.
So
Mr. Edmonds?
when you say they're available, will they be available on the website?
They need to be available to the public for review. I assume that can be done via the website.
They usually end up on the planning board website, if you go under the,
No, I just
the
want to make sure if
applications.
Yes.
following the planning board
What-
website.
What is it we're saying exactly? Yeah. No, what I'm proposing to say is that they are available for the interested parties to review a week before the meeting.
And if you don't make it, you can inform April, and it'll end up delaying your the meeting to.
Posting it
till
won't
February.
be the long poll here.
Sorry?
Posting it on the website will not be the long poll
No,
here.
that'll be easy.
I think that
So,
there's
okay.
other challenges.
Somebody want to make an actual motion? I think
I
Mike
I move
did
to
beauty, but,
continue the public hearing.
to continue the public hearing we're waiting for more.
While we're waiting for those items
Right.
discussed, which were.
So we're going to take, I'll take a motion to continue the public hearing to the next time,
To the next,
17th.
the 17th.
Want to make that
You want
motion
it?
there, Mike?
I so move that we continue
I
the
second
public
it.
hearing till
All
the
right,
8th.
I agree.
agree? Sure.
No?
Quick comment, sorry. It's been my experience with this process that, we would come back and certainly address Acorn's comments as we've done on previous projects. If the public has any other questions or concerns that don't relate to the Acorn document,
Now's the time.
I would hope that they would raise them now.
Yeah.
Because what I wouldn't want to have happen, and I think it has to be respectful of the applicant, is that if those issues and concerns within the Acorn document are addressed, and we go through those in a meeting hopefully in 2 weeks, and then there's a whole new concerns. So if there's questions or concerns that abutters or the public have, I would love the opportunity to hear them, again, beyond the Acorn report,
Soonest.
And they have been.
so that we
have
can
sent letters
address
to
them as part of this next
Right.
submittal, and furthermore, going into the final application.
I think that's fair. I don't think it's impossible that the responses to the Acorn, won't trigger some other thought, but I think what I've heard is the major concerns that are been out on the table are blasting and damage and some issues with sight lines and wildlife.
Water.
But
I
they
have-
do have the
Water
right
runoff.
to ask further questions.
Of course they do.
Of course.
Absolutely, no question.
But hopefully nobody's, please, public, if anyone's holding a question, now's the time to put it on the table and give the applicant a chance to respond in good faith.
But you've seen the abutters letters, right? You have copies of those?
I have seen them, correct.
Okay, so that,
So
I
you got
think
those two.
we, those are what we've seen here today. I think that's the majority of the big issues that have come up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a motion made and seconded to continue the public hearing.
Agree?
Agree.
Agree?
Agree.
Agree.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you. Which brings us to the Cape Arundel Golf Club. I know you're all here for that, so. Item 231101, 19 River Road, Cape Arundel Golf Course. And this is a public hearing on it, so.
Be public.
Good evening, members of the planning board. Thank you for having us here for the public hearing. My name is Phil Hesketh. I'm an architect with Dow Hill Architecture and Design. I am the authorized representative for Cape Arundel Golf Club. Quick review of what our project is for anyone who may be here for the public hearing. It's a 20 by 14 addition onto a material storage shed to an existing material storage shed. And we are also relocating and creating a new surrounding area for the dumpster pad next to it, adjacent to it. So,
Yes. Okay, so, George, do you have any new questions?
I have no new questions.
Okay. Anyone else?
No,
Okay.
it's all good.
Well, then I will open the public hearing and ask anyone here that wishes to discuss the Cape Arundel Golf Club. And seeing none, anybody raising hands? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
all right.
Do I have, hear a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ed?
Approved?
Approved.
Approved.
Approved. Approve.
Okay, so, I think George has,
Are they printed out?
it's over there, but we'll read it afterwards.
Read it after.
We'll let the other, there's another finding of facts to be read. I'm going to defer all of that until, so we're going to read the finding of facts,
Okay.
okay? And then we all sign that, and ultimately, you can pick it up from April in the morning.
You don't have to wait for it.
You don't have to wait for it.
It's not very exciting.
Okay, they do have to be recorded.
We do, though.
They have to be recorded, yes. Okay, that's why you pick
Okay.
it up after
So-
7.
April, when she gets it, she'll send it to me, or do I need to contact her about it?
Be best to go see her.
You will
need to
have
pick up-
take-
you need to
You'll
pick
have
up
to
the
go
signed
pick it up
copy.
and get it to the Registry of Deeds.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
didn't know if she would contact me. And
I have no idea. I would hope she would. But we're all here, so we
She's
will
very
all
good.
sign it. So she will have it tomorrow.
Okay.
The only question is somebody to notarize it. Okay?
Thank you very
Good.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
gentlemen.
Which brings us,
For kind of a reset to Wild District, it would be nice if, because I'm not sure I got all the letters. I know I didn't get the Acorn report,
right,
so.
It was in an email, that's,
Yeah, but I've seen one abutter letter.
Me too.
It sounds like there were more,
There are 2.
too. So if we could just maybe have all that info, or access to that information, so we're all singing from the same.
are you asking for April to send an email, or are you looking for printed copies to be at the next meeting?
Email, an email would be fine, like, here's the letters from the abutters, here's the Acorn report.
Yeah.
Have fun.
why don't you?
Perhaps they could just be posted in that section on the website where the active applications are.
Is it all in there?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but that would be
I think the
a way to
Acorn
do
The
it.
Acorn
one
where I
is,
saw the
Yeah.
Acorn.
I'm not
That's
sure
what I was
about the
thinking of.
letters, but the Acorn.
Was the Acorn report sent? 'Cause,
I didn't see it.
I
Not a
don't know, but
report,
it's on
but
the
a
website.
Huh?
I think it's on the website.
It's on the website, yeah, but I didn't know to go look to the website that it was there.
I don't think I got it in the mail.
I don't think
I
so.
think it was an email.
Yeah, here's the link, yeah, that,
Correct.
Okay,
It was
'cause
an email.
I don't remember the email, so
came from
maybe I
April.
just missed it.
Yeah,
So, but maybe just confirm with April that everything is loaded up, you know,
Okay,
so
the
we can
Acorn
go.
report is there, the Longview Partners letter, updated site plan, the planner menu. The only thing that I don't think is there necessarily is other people's letters.
well, and then the lawyer said he had sent some letter
And the lawyer
today.
said he
yeah,
sent
Oh, yeah.
something tonight.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
for some
so-
reason, he sent it tonight, and April
Yeah.
didn't put it on the web yet.
Right,
Yeah,
I tell
so,
you.
so
I
that should
think
be there.
Mike's got, I think, a good suggestion here. If that could all be gathered in one spot,
Yeah.
and if it's okay, that would be a reasonable spot.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
that'll work, then yeah.
Yeah. I'm just
Well-
looking here, and most of it's there.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it should all be on the active planning board applications.
That's where I am.
Yeah, but the letters should be
The
there
letter should
too.
be there too, so.
Everything should always be with the active
Yeah.
planning board
Yeah,
application.
I'll talk
That's a
with,
good idea.
I'll talk with April in the morning.
I
just wanna make
We don't
sure,
seem to
'cause
have
I-
anybody
No,
from
I
code
know-
enforcement
I
here.
know,
would be a
and
good
I have
idea,
to
though.
go look for them, but they should be there.
Good idea.
I know the select board, they do that.
Do they?
Yes, if you look
Okay.
at the active application.
okay, here we go.
The item 5, 231-201 Heritage Housing Trust, Beechwood Avenue Housing Development, so please, and identify yourself.
Certainly. Hi, my name is Larissa Crockett. I'm the Executive Director of the Kennebunkport Heritage Housing Trust, and we are here to discuss what we are calling Landon Woods is the name of this development. It is being named after Ruth Landon. She was a very active member of the Historical Society and a former Select Board member. So we're excited to kind of honor her and what was previously her land at some point in the past, and hope that this process goes as smoothly as possible.
Cool. Okay. So tell us about the,
Sure. So the parcel is on Beach, I have not. They have it in their packets, but not the large version. So in your packets, you had 2 sketch plans that were included. I had not, however, submitted to the planning board office the second sketch in large print form, so that is here as an option to discuss as well. But let's start at the beginning with the project as a whole. So the parcel is just under 5 acres of land, and when we take out the 15% for infrastructure and all of the identified wetlands, it leaves us with just over 3 acres, and so we have broken this into 3 lots. Each of those lots for this zone are allowed to have up to a 2-family dwelling, which is what we are proposing. We have recently released the RFP for this project. It's also on our website if anybody wants to read it and see what it looks like to builders, and those proposals are due back to the trust next week by midweek. We've been really clear with builders that we are looking for houses that meet a historic Kennebunkport aesthetic. That's important to us in this development. And we also have included in the RFP the Kennebunkport zoning ordinance standards for 2-family dwellings so that they understand that one of the homes needs to be subordinate in size to the other, and that they need to have their main entrances need to be on different sides of the house from one another. And we do intend to have duplexes, 2-family dwellings, in the same sort of style as we did at Heritage Woods in terms of being connected through external architecture to give the homeowners the opportunity to have completely separate walls from one another. The houses at this neighborhood will be smaller than the houses that are at Heritage Woods, mostly because of cost. Okay, the costs for building houses, we're expecting that these houses are going to cost us between $450 and $490 per unit to build. We are capped at selling them by Maine Housing at $325, and there is a lot of subsidy, therefore, that we're going to need to be doing on these houses. So we are looking to have the smaller homes be between 800 and 1,000 square feet. They will be 2-bedroom, 1.5-bath, single-story homes. We think that they'll be really appealing not only to seniors that are looking to age in place in an efficient and kind of safer manner with that single-story living, but also if I am a single parent with 1 child, or if I am a couple with no children. We think that there's some demographic that would really enjoy that size home. The second homes, the larger homes, will be between 1,100 and 1,400 square feet. They will be 2-story homes. They will have 3 bedrooms and either 1.5 or 2 baths, depending on the designs that the board approves as their final home design. All of the homes will, as always, be not only meeting the Town of Kennebunkport zoning ordinance standards, but they will also be meeting Maine housing standards. So these will be very efficient homes. They will have, everything will be fully electrified. So all heat pump water heaters, heat pump heating systems. Maine housing also requires us at this point to have them with conduit that allows for future solar panel installation, as well as future electric vehicle charging stations. And we are pleased to have that happen as well. So we are hoping to have these homes available for purchase by fall of 2025. We would love this process to wrap up here June, July of this year, be able to break ground late summer, and have this project ready to go for sales of the homes in fall of 2025. The homes will be, as at Heritage Woods, half of the homes will be sold to households that earn up to 80% of the area median income, and the other half of the homes will be sold to households that earn up to 120% of the area median income.
So what's the smaller size? I've got 1,100 on the bigger ones, 1,500, and what's the smaller ones?
The larger ones are 1,100 to 1,400 is what we've put in the RFP, and the smaller ones are 800 to 1,000.
Thank you. And what's the price? Is that just market for the larger one?
No, absolutely not. So the market price on these, we think that, if the market currently is any indication, there were only that I had seen this summer, 3 homes that were under $600,000 in the town of Kennebunkport in the last 6 months, and all of them were one-bedroom cottages. So these are not going to be sold at market. These are going to be sold well below market. The price points will be determined in part by the household's income. Okay, so a household that's earning up to 80% of the area median income can't afford a $325,000 house. That is outside of their affordability range. Affordability, just to make our math simple, means that no more than 30% of that household's income is going towards their housing costs. And that's complete housing costs. So that includes their mortgage, their taxes, their insurance, et cetera. So we expect that some of those houses will actually sell in more like the 250 to 270 range, and that some of them, Maine Housing may allow us to sell a couple of them, providing the households have the income to sustain this, at more of a 340. But that would be the top end that we can imagine.
Including the 1,100 to 1,400.
And we're not confident that that the prices will be determined by the size of the home. It really will be determined by the household income.
So is there any qualifications, how long they have to own it before they can therefore go and sell it? And will it still remain? Is there a ceiling, or is it?
I love this question. This is super important for everyone to hear, because I believe everyone received a letter from us asking for your support. So I really love the opportunity to explain this. So these houses are forever affordable. When my kids are dead and in the ground, these houses are still going to be sold to people that are earning between up to 80% area median income for some of the homes, and up to 120% area median income for the others. They are perpetually affordable. So let's say that I'm a homeowner, I purchase one of these homes, I pay $300,000 for this home. When we can imagine that if I suddenly enter a much higher income bracket, I may no longer wish to live in a 1,000 square foot home, and I may wish to sell that home and move into a larger home. And that's actually really great for everybody. The homeowner is in a higher income bracket. We love to see that. They're able to, become a more stable and generating wealth for their household. But it also means that the home is open up again for somebody else who needs a starting place into the home ownership market. We have a maximum price formula that is based on the area median income through time. And so the homeowners are allowed to earn not just back the equity that they have earned for themselves by paying down their mortgage, because our homeowners do carry mortgages, but they're also allowed a slight increase in the value of the home. But it is capped based on the area median income at the year of their sale, and the area median incomes in the years preceding their sale. We have a nice little spreadsheet with lots of good formulas inside of it that calculates that out for us. And they need to sell it to somebody who meets the same income requirements that they themselves met in order to buy the home themselves.
So is this all in the deed, or?
Oh, yes.
You control it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so at Heritage Woods, we used a land lease covenant model. I think that we are looking for this. Maine Housing is not pleased with us doing that again. So I think that we are looking to shift to a covenant situation, a deeded covenant situation for this next neighborhood instead.
Instead of 100-year lease, or?
Exactly. Yep.
Do you intend, between the buildings, to have any, connecting walkways or anything, neighborhood sort of feel?
That is
All be
not our
separate?
intent. So that is not our intention. So there's 2 sketch plans in front of you. The first one was the one that we were running off of since they hired me. So and my fault for not questioning this, but it shows a road going in and breaking the lot into 3, the parcel into 3 lots, 2 that have direct Beechwood Road frontage and 1 as a back lot. One of the builders, when we put out the RFP, I had a builder call me and say, "Why are you putting a road in this parcel? You have plenty of road frontage to have 3 road frontage lots. You do not need to incur the cost of infrastructure of a road." And I said, "Hallelujah." And that is why you have sketch 2. So with the second sketch, there would be no shared infrastructure. I do think that it's possible because of site distances. So this parcel sits between kind of an S on Beechwood. I think it's possible that 2 of the lots may need to have a shared driveway in order to have safety from a site distance standpoint from one of the ends. That will be something that we will need to work with an engineer to determine officially, but I've gone out and I've walked it a couple of times. I think it's possible that the lot split is right at a place where that would need to be kind of a shared driveway situation, but it would not be someplace that we had internal sidewalks and so forth. One of the things I like about the second sketch plan that has those 3 lots is it would allow us to do a much more green envelope cut style of development. We wouldn't be disturbing as many trees. I heard you, Ms. Perlmutter. I also believe in large trees and if we can preserve them. And there are some nice specimens on that lot that we would like to see if we can maintain. But it also would leave, the property had been quarried at one point, and there are still quite a lot of rockscapes, if you will, in the back portion of that parcel. And I can imagine if I had young kids again, how much fun they would have kind of playing on those rockscapes, and that would be kind of a nice feature to maintain. So I think that there's a lot of value in shifting our focus to the second sketch plan and thinking about those 3 road-facing lots.
Even better, they could learn rock gardening
Sure.
and give them a.
There, on the last year's garden tour, there was a house quite nearby, former quarry, where they've spent decades expanding the gardens on the rocks, and it's quite something.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
So look up the address and contact them. They'd love
They
to show
can
it.
learn a lot that way.
Are also similar selection criteria for customers, clientele, buyers?
Homeowners?
Homeowners, thank you.
We actually intend to do a lottery process with this neighborhood, so I'm waiting to hear back from HUD about if we are allowed to have a local preference as part of that lottery. If we are, we would think about having 2 of the homes held out for a separate local preference lottery. And the local preference would be, do you currently live in, work in, have kids in RSU 21, sort of, that would be kind of the local preference. Local preference is really tricky, especially in communities that have historically been very homogeneous in their demographics. Because if you only allow your homes to be sold to people that already have deep connections here, you tend to alienate a large part of the population that does not meet those demographic characteristics. So if we did do a local preference, it would only be for a small portion of the homes, and then the people that were local preference candidates for that first lottery that were not successful would be included in the general population lottery as well. But that would make sure that there was open access to whoever wishes to be a heritage homeowner to have access to that.
Weren't one of the original criteria that they work in the community?
No, that's illegal.
That was not, okay. And what about they have children who might attend school?
That would be discrimination based on age of, so that's also not, the fair housing standards are pretty clear about protecting protected classes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Beechwood doesn't have sewers, if I remember.
It sure does not.
So you're going to have to put in septic.
Well, may I please introduce Mr. Logan?
Could you introduce yourself, please?
I wondered why he was here.
He's going to be learning some knitting skills from me to do some meditation and to practice those skills. But we really are deeply grateful for Mr. Logan. He has been super generous with his time and his skills and has already gone out and walked the site, and I will step aside to allow him to discuss with you where those septics can take place.
One comment. I'm glad to hear you're not going to take down trees, because Beechwood needs trees.
Please let me make very clear, some trees will need to be sacrificed for this project.
Possibly, but it would be nice if you would work with the Shade Tree Committee to put in some trees afterwards along the road.
I am happy to have that conversation, and especially if there is generous donors that would like to donate those shade trees, I cannot imagine why we would object.
We can easily write a grant for that.
Love it.
I got an excavator that could help plant.
I know you do.
I'm Jim Logan, again. I think I'm still me.
He still is, yeah.
Larissa kindly, and I was pleased to be asked, as the new, lead at the Housing Trust, to be asked back, because I was part of the first go-around. The mapping over here, although the original site we had by the skating pond did not have any quarry activity, it's very similar, rolling, shallow to bedrock property, same kind of depressions in between. This lot on Beechwood, not that different from the one over on Wilds District. They're pretty typical of town. We did have some closed depressions in the vicinity of this project, including, I think, one straddling the back property line. I don't know if that's shown on this map. Yes, this one down in here. You see some of this is hatched as potential vernal pool habitat, and we, before coming to this board, studied it. That Werner, I think, had me looking at that before he left. So we did an analysis of anything here that was naturally occurring, because I got to remind people that the DEP laws speak to vernal pool habitat as naturally occurring. Much of the habitat, and it may very well be spotted salamander or frog habitat, is squares cut out of bedrock. There's a lot of standing water here. And while you can find egg masses in those locations, the DEP does not regulate quarries, okay, in terms of vernal pool habitat. It must be naturally occurring. That's right in the definition. So some of this quarry area was excluded. The naturally occurring ones, I think we had I think there were two, and that'll certainly come up in future submissions, the substance of our work and the responses we got back from IF&W and the DEP. The rest of the wetlands that we did identify here, typical closed forested freshwater wetlands that we would find anywhere in town.
I guess my only kind of thing that hit me when it was a quarry and that is, are you going to be able to find somewhere to put in septic systems?
I brought tonight to the meeting our first cut. We went in and you know, when you get really shallow or you get really bony, and this is a bony site, there's a lot of glacial erratics or ledge pieces that were not perfectly split and they were left in piles. Now, a person like me with a hand shovel, with a blade this wide and a probe is going to struggle some to determine what's bedrock and what's not. So before we put a plan at all together for Larissa with soil suitability, we put an excavator in there. I took a machine over there at more expense to verify. And what we had, at least on the first sketch plan, that was, we were working at the time under the assumption she was going to try, or they were going to try to advance the 3-lot plan that had the roadway, the short section of Hammerhead Road. And I had 2 suitable septic sites for each of those 3 lots, as you need with a subdivision, when the limiting factor in the soil is 24 inches or less in a subdivision in Kennebunkport. So we've met that standard. What we need to do then is take that information and superimpose it onto this plan to make sure we've still got 2 on each lot, as is common as the lot lines may change from sketch plan to preliminary or prelim to final. We may need to go back another time with the excavator and search out another site or 2, or make an adjustment because of a lot line that got too close.
But you were getting 24 inches.
No, we were getting less than 24, but in the event you have less than 24 inches, you need a backup septic site or 2 per lot.
Okay.
What I said is that I'm successful with 6 suitable sites so far on the whole 5 acres, or whatever it is.
And no trees were damaged by the excavator?
No, the wind took way more than we were ever going to knock over with the excavator. I go through the woods with the little mini excavator. The kid doesn't want to he doesn't want to bust his machine up, so he goes around everything. We're not knocking trees down. I find the excavator, you don't want to waste time. If I'm digging holes, I don't want to waste time pushing trees over. You don't get paid for pushing trees over. So anyway, we were successful in that regard. I have provided that information to Larissa. I'm sure that will want to be provided also to Lower Village. It appears that Lower Village is the one working on the subdivision plan. And as Larissa continues with the process, if there's anything I can do to help out, or if the board has any specific questions relative to natural resources or layout, let me know.
Okay, so any more comments for Larissa here?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. Just to clarify, you mentioned 325K as a ballpark cell.
That's the cap, actually. Main housing caps the homes there. We are hopeful, but the cap changes annually, so by the time that these homes sell, we can imagine it being at 340 as a cap.
And again, that's based on a reassessment on a yearly basis as to what the average income level is in
Yeah, I'm not
Kennebunkport.
sure what Maine's housing's formula is exactly, but I feel confident that it is based somewhat on area median income because the cap is different depending on which county you are in the state of Maine. And so our cap is higher than Sagadahoc. That's a bad example,
So
Somerset.
that might change, as you're
Yes.
saying, it might go up.
And I really do think that because, as I mentioned, a household of 3 people, okay, so area median income is determined by the size of your household as well. So you can be at 80% area median income as a household of 4, but if you had that same income with 2 people, you would be above 80%, okay? So I think that if we look, what I've done for modeling for this neighborhood from a price standpoint, is using a three-member household as our average expectation. And so using that, a three-member household could not afford a $325,000 home if they were earning up to 80% of area median income. So we know that at least half of these houses are going to need to sell for significantly less than that 325.
You expect these to be two-bedroom?
The single-story 800 to 1,000 square feet homes will be two-bedroom. The 1,100 to 1,400 square foot homes will be three-bedroom.
So you just hit my other question. Are these, which ones are single-story? Wait a minute, there's three buildings. Do I understand that correctly?
There are three lots, each of
Yes.
which will have a two-family dwelling. The two-family dwelling will include a single-story, 800 to 1,000 square foot home, and a two-story, 1,100 to 1,400 square foot home.
Sharing a common party wall?
Nope, we would hope to have them share a common porch or other exterior architecture as we did at Heritage Woods.
Thank you.
You're going to put in heat pumps, right?
By requirements from main housing, yes.
Mhm.
You touched on the difference between Heritage Woods and the proposed Landon Woods with respect to land ownership.
Yes.
Did I understand that correctly, that these are a different model? These are a traditional homeowner purchases the land and the home?
That is our intention with this neighborhood unless main housing changes their regulations. We prefer, in some ways, the land lease model. It is a it is a somewhat more secure, permanent affordability model. It's a lot harder to circumvent if you have ill intent as a buyer and seller, a land lease situation, than it is with a couple of bad actors that are very determined to circumvent a covenant. So the land lease does offer slightly higher levels of protection, but main housing we could build single-family homes with a land lease, or we can build two-family dwellings with covenants. We cannot build two-family dwellings with a land lease. So because we want to maximize the density and make sure that we are building as many homes as we possibly can for this project, we are going to forego the land lease, shift to a covenant, and access main housing's program.
So I buy one of these, the single family, the one-story, and I decide in 5 years that my circumstances have changed and I want to sell this. What is the process and what controls are put on? Is there a lottery now for a new owner? And who runs that?
We do. So the housing trust is, we have a couple of options, and we are kind of building this plane as we're flying, because this would be our
thinking?
our
That's all
first.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I think that what we are really modeled very similarly to the Affordable Housing Trust on Mount Desert, which is Island Housing Trust. It serves the 4 towns of Mount Desert, and what they have is a running list of interested applicants. And so they had lotteries, right, to choose, but then people that were not successful in those lotteries were put onto a running list. And now when they have a homeowner that wishes to sell, their homeowner contacts them and says, hey, we'd like to sell. And they say, would you like our help with that? And according to their executive director, 100% of the time, the homeowner says, yes, please, because you can imagine how challenging it would be to try to use a market real estate agent and meet all of the criterias from income and so forth that a home buyer is going to need to meet. So then the land trust goes through or housing trust, sorry, they go through and they start at the top of their list and they contact that person and they say, are you interested in this house? And if the person says yes, then they buy the house, and if they don't, they go to the next name.
Don't they go on a lottery, though?
They've already gone through the lottery to generate that list of potential buyers.
And if they drop from the list, it goes to the next person?
Right.
And the financing is handled through Maine State Housing Authority?
That depends on the buyer. So the buyer has the opportunity to access main housing mortgages if they are eligible, but they also have access to commercial mortgages through Bangor, Gorham, Kennebunkport, whichever bank they would prefer to be working with.
Let me make sure I understood then. The deed covenant will include a stipulation that the sale of the home be handled by this board that you envision and not by the homeowner as a private individual?
The homeowner has the right to sell it as a private individual with the same, but with the caps very clearly in place in that covenant.
And who enforces that?
We do.
Who's we? I don't
I'm
understand.
sorry, Kennebunkport Heritage Housing Trust as an entity.
So let me ask it a different way. Is there an HOA, and is the Kennebunkport Housing Trust a member of it? Is that how this works? I don't understand how you haven't given up complete control. You keep referring to we, but I don't see how there's a we after you sell it, land and home.
They are required to let us know that they are interested in selling. That's part of their deed covenants.
No, okay.
And because it is a covenanted property, in the same way that if I were to purchase a home that had a covenant that prohibited me from putting a mobile home on my property, I couldn't then just sell it to somebody else and they could put a mobile home on it. There's a covenant that's restricting what can and cannot happen with that property. And the same is happening here.
In my case, I'm a member of an eight-member HOA. And if somebody tried to put a mobile home on my property, if I tried to do that, the HOA would sue to enforce the covenant. Okay, not the state, not the housing trust. I don't understand how that works.
I am happy to get back to you about that at the next meeting.
No,
I don't know how to answer you fully, and I don't want to give you false information.
Wouldn't you still have to comply with the HUD, the main HUD?
No,
With prices?
they do because of the covenant that will be on their deed.
Yeah, but who enforces the covenant, I guess?
That's the
is-
point.
That
That
will
was my
continue.
Yes.
So anyway, this is a sketch plan. One of the
Yes.
things I'll get to in a second, but I'm gonna ask you is, what do you want out of this other than to inform? Is there anything you wanna ask of the board? But before we do that, let me just make sure I got the technical questions out of the way. One other thing, as a subdivision, maybe the board can help me there. Isn't there a common land requirement of 20%?
Yeah, but Larissa mentioned that when she introduced.
I didn't see it on either of these sketches.
Oh, yeah, I see, actually draw it on the sketches, yeah.
Do you envision a commonly held by the HOA, 20%? Or be looking for that in the preliminary, right?
Bear with Larissa. She and I haven't had any extended meeting prior to tonight about this sketch plan app.
Oh, it's okay.
Open space is something that I've written on the bottom
Sure.
of my agenda tonight for things to discuss with Larissa.
Yeah.
So that is something to bring
I
up.
just wanted to make sure that
Yep,
was mentioned.
yep.
You know, obviously, you don't need to solve that
Ultimately,
today.
each lot will need a net lot calculation so that it shows
Yeah.
both the gross versus the net. There will be a calculation table in the corner in the fashion.
But from your boots on the ground, walking the site, it lends itself to an area being designated as common land.
Yeah, my guess is we might, if this concept of 3 individual lots with 3 frontages on Beechwood might be sensible to lop off the back section and let everybody share the backwoods, if you will.
In the first sketch plan, and I think it shows on your plans, if it does not, that is, again, my error, it certainly showed in the hand. So we had these large hand-sketched drawings for you, and I had a couple of board members that were concerned that you all were a little bit used to higher quality than hand sketching. And so I said, okay, and so luckily I am married to somebody who knows how to use CAD, and so we learned how to use.
Sketch plan meeting, right? I mean,
Well,
really.
a CAD sketch, I think is a superior way. So in the first sketch, I'm going to take my microphone with me, so I'm traveling with sound. In the first sketch, Jim, could you act as Vanna for me now? So in the original sketch, you had the road coming in through here, right? And you had a lot here and a lot here and a lot here, and this was cornered off as meeting that open space requirement. So when I sat down with Werner and kind of broke down this lot, and we were pulling out to make sure that we had enough for 3 lots, we did pull out the percentage needed for open space, and we showed it in the first plan in this bottom corner here. I think that Jim is right. If this is the sketch plan that moves forward, having this kind of back area here be that shared space would make sense. And you'll see on your versions, there is square footage for each lot shown. So we have plenty of space to be working with to make that open space meet.
The other thing is, I while I was looking, I'm sorry, while I was looking over there, there are actually 8 suitable sites that we've
go.
identified so far on this lot, not
All right.
6. I only was counting 6 because of the way the original lot configuration was. So presently, we have at least 8 to work with, depending on how they fall with these new lots.
So typically, you know, you'd be looking, does anyone on the board see any obvious things that we'd be looking for that aren't here? And are there any issues that you wanted to raise? And it sounds like this is a very viable situation that you have here, that this could really come to pass. That the financial challenges are formidable, obviously, and so that,
Yes, they are.
that, three individual driveways, that sounds good, you know. You're not gonna have public water.
We have no public water, no public sewer.
Yeah.
If we did, we'd be here with a very different plan.
Sure, sure.
The one thing that came to my mind was last meeting, we had that new ordinance or code or whatever. Seeing that's in flux, I didn't know how that impacted
Well,
this.
the law is not in flux, you know, LD 2003, is it called?
I can answer that question, actually.
Yeah.
So that's what I was kind of referring to when I said we'd have a very different plan. This does not fall under LD 2003 because it is not in a growth area, nor does it have public water and sewer. If it did, I would be here with 3 lots with 4 houses on each lot. So this is not subject to LD 2003.
The board may want to consider that in the future, because at some point, the natural resource laws and the septic rules of the state of Maine are going to prohibit in certain underdeveloped areas or more rural areas without public water and sewer, that LD 2003, whatever it is, only will allow so much before it won't allow more.
It's part of it is the 20,000 square foot subsurface drainage issues, right? So
Yeah.
that's,
State of Maine.
right, because we don't have public water and public sewer here, we are confined to that. So by having a 2-family dwelling on a lot that is 50,000 square feet, will more than covering that 20,000 foot requirement per unit.
And that minimum lot size law in the state of Maine, to clarify, does not look at whether an area is served by public water or not. My instinct forever was, well, that would address the issue. Has to do with putting a certain amount of wastewater into the ground and maintaining the public's health.
Right.
That might be the water bodies that are adjacent and so on and so forth. Nitrates from your septic, what's happening in the ground. Beyond what would be needed for a well on the next door lot.
So your septic then is going to be one septic system for 2 houses on a lot?
Similarly to our design concept at the other project,
The other project.
when you have, and this is common when I have duplexes or even an accessory dwelling unit that's connected, then there's a certain sensibility to considering togetherness. However, I'm hearing for the first time from Larissa ownership that might be 2 owners in one building. As a designer with 35 years of experience.
And a license.
And a license to prove it. I just got renewed again. It's sometimes more advantageous, not just from the ownership standpoint, but from the management of a whole project standpoint. You're more able to identify a problem that might arise in a duplex situation if the leach fields are not connected. So we may elect, and commonly the law in the state of Maine will allow us to put 10 feet or 5 feet even between wastewater disposal fields on a common piece of property. But still the entities are separated, so it's easier to identify and troubleshoot a problem. So we would like at that point to have parallel plumbing, 2 separate septic tanks, 1 for each unit, and then if possible, a separate field for each unit. May not be possible to do that, and we may elect to make them combined, in which case.
An
HOA. There is an HOA,
That old
Doc.
saying about good septics make good neighbors.
And it goes
yeah.
right in there. At some point in time with these projects, you get your tank pumped every 2 years, no more than every 3, and you're held to a kind of a higher standard.
Right,
than
and
if
it's
you were-
not a discussion topic between 2 neighbors.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great subject for dinner.
Thank you. That's all I've had.
Larissa, but I hope this is in line.
But do check with Mary Lou at the library about the garden tour last summer. It's almost right next door, I think.
Okay.
But they did a lovely job with the quarry, and it will be inspirational. She can introduce you. I'm sure they'd be happy to share.
That sounds like a fun day. Any other questions for
Well,
me?
so I just, I'm just back on the target population for ownership. So you're gonna propose 2 of the 6 be reserved for local residents.
Local preference, if that is allowed by HUD.
Okay, so how are you, so what's the scope for the other 4 or potentially 6?
So they all would have the same income requirements, okay? And that's really, that is the threshold you have to get past. So half of those homes, there will be a lottery for half the homes at 80%.
Okay, well, you went over that, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Send out you're gonna have like a public announcement in various publications to say you're inviting people to put their name on a lottery? Is that how it's gonna work?
Great question. So there's a whole separate, we have a committee that's part of the board called the Stewardship Committee. And they are charged with not only maintaining relationships with our current homeowners and helping to facilitate that possible resale process, but also with marketing this next neighborhood and making sure that we are spreading the word far and wide about the opportunity to become a homeowner. So we've already identified a number of target populations that we will direct communicate with. So all of the municipal governments, okay, so Biddeford, Arundel, Kennebunkport will make sure that they're hearing, hey, we've got this neighborhood and we think that a lot of your employees may be income qualified for these. RSU 21, we've identified which contracts within RSU 21 really do meet our eligibility guidelines, and we will direct market to those organized groups. We also will be direct marketing to current families that are at RSU 21 that might be in a rental situation and looking to move to a homeownership situation. We put out a survey in December, early December, late November, to the public saying, hey, help us think of other groups we should be direct marketing to. And we had some really great feedback about making sure that we're direct marketing to the local churches, direct marketing to the local nonprofit community, making sure that we are pulling together a packet. We need to wait till we know exactly what we're building, okay? But pulling together a packet that's able to say, these are the houses that we're gonna build. This is the price point range we expect them to fall into. Here's the current AMI requirements. And we've had great conversations with Avesta. They're this very large affordable housing organization here in the state of Maine and a couple of other states as well. And they offer home ownership preparation classes. And so they will, once we've identified this pool of people that are interested in becoming heritage homeowners, we will then be working with Avesta to provide those people and actually require those people to take a home ownership preparedness class. That will help us identify where there might be credit challenges or down payment challenges, and we should have a solid 12-month period to work with those folks to get them ready to secure a mortgage to make sure that they're eligible. So the marketing is an important piece. We want to make sure that that message is getting out there loud and clear, not just through Kennebunk Post, Seacoast Online, Portland Press Herald, but also with direct marketing to populations that we think might be income eligible and might be interested.
So, so are you limiting this to York County or the state of Maine, or just like New England in general? And what's your geographic boundary?
We don't have one, but the marketing will be like the direct marketing, like I said, RSU 21, local municipalities, local churches, local nonprofits. But there will be, on our website, there already is, an interest application. So anybody from anywhere that was interested is welcome to fill out that interest application. And if they work through the whole process with us, they take the homeownership education class, they're financially ready to secure a mortgage, they meet our income requirements, and they win the lottery, they get to have that house if they want it.
Okay, so, I mean, you would even accept an application from somebody that lived in California?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Okay, so then, I thought it was very interesting that the current concept is the owner will own the lot as well as the house, which is, I think, preferable to the land lease version. It's more traditional, I guess.
It is more traditional.
So, but the I guess the one issue I was wondering about is the cap that you can sell any one unit for is $325
that
Right.
we can this first round, yes.
Yeah, that you can sell them for. But you think it's gonna cost around 450 to 490. So how do you make, what's the source of the funding difference there?
Hustle. It's hustle.
So
So 70,000 of that per unit will come from Maine Housing in their current affordable homeownership program. It's a $70,000 subsidy per unit of housing, providing you are building 5 units or more in the project. So that brings us to the 70,000. We are very hopeful that our homeowners will partner with bank and mortgage companies that prioritize them in the Federal Home Loan Bank, $25,000 to $29,000 assistance that is out there. And then you will be hearing our voice all over town and all over the area for the next 2 years. And we will raise it. We did it for the Heritage Woods, we will do it with Landon Woods, and we will find the money.
So you're actually administering funds. You have a bank account somewhere
Oh, yes.
to donate funds toward the purchase.
We are a federally recognized tax exempt 501c3 organization.
Okay, so any of the funds that you donate toward a purchase is just a donation from you? Is that taxable to the beneficiary?
No, so I think I understand what you're asking. We are building these houses,
Yeah.
okay? So we will take on the cost of building these houses, we will build these houses. When, in our pro forma, that, figuring out how we're paying for all of this, in the revenue side, there is the 70,000 from Maine Housing, the 25,000 from Federal Home Loan Bank, there's the very large to-be-raised fundraising piece, and then there's the homeowner's mortgage piece. The homeowner does not have anything to do with how much their home is subsidized by. They simply are told, your price for this home is X number of dollars. They secure that mortgage and they pay us that money, and that helps to cover the cost.
Is that pro forma form on your website?
It is not, and I would not like it to be there yet until we have refined a little bit what the total costs are going to be.
Okay.
I take it you take administrative costs out of the organization.
Yes. Yes. As a nonprofit, we do have costs. So we have legal costs, we have staff costs, we have stamps. Consulting costs. We will have, engineering costs.
But I'm talking about administrative salaries.
We have one staff member.
Operating costs.
Okay,
That's me.
okay.
Okay. And I think we run a pretty tight ship.
Okay.
I had a follow-up question. Do you envision a stipulation as a covenant that the home be occupied by the purchaser?
Oh, absolutely. Our current land lease, which is and our covenant will mirror the land lease very, very closely. And it's, the housing trust that I mentioned on Mount Desert uses the same covenant language. And they do use covenants, not land leases. They are required to live there 11 months a year minimum. And if at any point that changes, that triggers a kind of a mandatory sell situation. You have to be a year-round resident. We are not building secondary homes. We are building primary residences, single-only residences, and year-round population residences.
Again, though, with the model for Heritage Woods, you had an active participation by the organization in that they own the land. And so they were involved and they would detect that situation. If the homeowners do in fact wholly own the property and the land and the buildings, it's just, I'm interested to see how that's going to be policed. It's going to be harder for you. By the way, don't walk away thinking that I'm anything but supportive of this. And,
These are great questions to be asking. I guess.
I think it's a tremendous thing you're doing, and the first example of it, Heritage Woods, is just even now so currently well executed that I think it's a model for what you're doing going forward. The fact that the model has to change because of real constraints, that's where the challenges are.
I find some comfort in, Habitat for Humanity, everyone knows Habitat, right? They use a covenant model. They do not use a land lease model. So we know that this is a model, and Island Housing Trust uses a covenant model. And there's another very similar housing trust that's on Nantucket They use a covenant model. So we know that it's possible. And these are organizations that have been around for decades. They're not as new as we are. So, and they've had the resale process take place multiple times. It does.
And they're willing to share their
Oh,
expertise.
absolutely.
So
This is a
that's-
very
that's
generous group of
promising.
people.
And they're very similar communities.
Yes.
Oh, fair point.
So the people that are on that didn't win the lottery for Heritage Trust, are they eligible to enter your new lottery?
So they didn't, I was not here when Heritage Woods was being sold, but my understanding was there was not exactly a lottery process. It was a little bit of a different process that they went through. So what we have right now is, last year, I put up onto our website, because we are efficient with our resources, I'm also our webmaster. I put up onto our website a interest application, and it funnels into a spreadsheet for me so I can see who's applying. And it asks simple questions like, how many people are in your household? What is your current household income? Things like that. And then questions, because I just like to know a little from a demographic standpoint, where do you currently live? What is your occupation, if applicable? Do you have children in your home? Just so we can kind of get a sense of who's interested in working with us. And right now we have 11 households that have indicated to us that they're interested right now. All of those do happen to come from the state of Maine. We have not reached California just yet. And they are a mixture of families that have children, households that do not have children, interesting range of jobs. I always think it's interesting to see what are the careers that people are in that are interested in becoming homeowners. Things from there's a legal assistant to a sales manager to just kind of across the spectrum of different sort of fields. So we don't have a current backup system yet. So we will do a full-fledged first lottery experience. The people that have expressed interest, if they continue to express interest, will be part of that lottery that takes place in 2025.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Larissa. Good presentation.
So I think that I'm supposed to ask you if we can either forego a site walk and move on to being invited to submit.
Sidewalks with Jim.
I don't think we
love
need it.
sidewalks with Jim. I mean,
This weekend?
I have spare snowshoes.
Unless you think we need,
They're supposed to be about
Jim, do you
4
think-
inches.
Jim, do you think you need the board's input? And
You have to give 2 weeks.
we're gonna get such a surprise when we go out there later?
I was surprised at the one we had on Wiles District, because that was the first one in my history. Or, we walked, Trudeau's.
That's
right. Yeah,
we did.
Trudeau.
That was one of there have not been a lot of sidewalks where, when I'm on the other side of the river, you don't do a thing without a sidewalk. Usually we're rushing the winter, because the minute there's 6 inches of snow, they're not going on sidewalks over there. I didn't think Wiles District was controversial. I don't think this one's controversial. It's the same kind of rolling, shallow bedrock, little depression here, you got a little wetland here, forest, it's all, your town is very uniform. And we could wax and wane about how this is a really special wildlife property, and this one is, they're about the same. You'll find deer everywhere out there. And so, it's just another wooded parcel in town. I think it's easily gonna support 3. Do we almost have enough?
We almost have enough for fourth, but we don't have it, so we decided to stick with the rules, just go with 3.
So my thought would be, let's defer the site walk until the initial,
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it needs it.
If it needs it, we'll.
and then there'll be a public hearing associated with it as well.
My impression tonight is we need to go home, sharpen our pencil, and come back with a really nice preliminary plan application.
That'd be good, yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be any major issues in this sketch plan. So it's good to go to the next
Yeah.
I would
level.
So I think
And
the
do I have-
answer of a sketch plan is that the board doesn't seem to have any major problems with it.
Right.
So go forth and prosper.
Thank you, I love that. May I just kind of get your temperature? Do you all see the benefit of the roadless 3 road-facing lots plan?
As long as the site distances are good and the
Okay.
separation distances are met.
That gets to be more obvious with the model you're trying for sale.
Yes.
That analysis or the answer to that question might be different if you were still gonna keep common ownership, or the land
Landless.
trust was gonna keep ownership of
Agreed.
the land.
Just because of one we recently had, I know that Beechwood can be kind of windy and hilly.
Yes.
So long as the lines of sight on the driveways are.
Yeah, and I've looked at
And
it.
across the street.
I've looked at it. We don't have a hill challenge. We do have, I really, like I mentioned earlier, I think it is likely that part of the sketch design will include a shared drive, if that's allowed.
Right.
Because of wanting to, I think we have the site distance just on that third lot. When I say the third lot, I'm thinking, so here's Rotary Park, okay, Beechwood, Rotary Park. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3. It's the third lot, because you've got that you've got a curve there that we would just be making site distance on. And so I think that there would be value in having a shared driveway between lots 2 and 3 to ensure the safety of that driveway.
I agree with what you said, because I looked at it myself. When I came out of the woods with the excavator, we had to park in the head of the entrance into the town land down where the park is, because there's not good shoulder dip width in front of the subject parcel. So we walked up the shoulder.
Sounds
I took a look
reasonable.
at that site distance when we come out of the woods, because I was directing traffic for the excavator. I think Larissa's right, I think it's there, it's close. There may be a little bit of tree clearing for this.
But tiny little new trees, nothing old.
I mean, within the town right away now.
I love the new trees.
You know how that has to happen sometimes.
Thank you.
In the town right away? No.
But I do take a little difference to what you said, Mr. Logan, about this town being uniformly shallow and slight depression. It's winter, we do the best we can.
I'm working here 35 years, I love it, I know just what I'm looking at.
You know what a little depression looks like.
Larissa's not wrong too, is that part of the configuration of site distance, the limit is more a horizontal curvature versus a vertical curvature.
As long as you can.
Yeah, I
Both of
slide
them are
around, I
components of
slide
site
around that
distance.
corner
We're just
quite
in the old
often.
Cape Road where everybody was like, oh, this site, and as soon as you drove past it, you go, oh yeah, this makes no sense.
So-
I appreciate the input from the board tonight, thank you.
So do I take this as an invitation to move on to the pre-application process?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, so now we have 2
Oh, yeah, that's right.
findings of fact,
Are they on the board, or
which,
version are we gonna go with? The official one from April or the one I printed?
April.
April, you don't like my printing, that's fine. Doesn't have letterhead, that's the only thing. I wasn't made with letterhead.
so, okay, so this is the,
I'm Old Cape.
So we don't need a case manager yet for that?
no,
You're Old Cape? Oh, I'm Cape Road. I'm River Road.
You are, that's right. You are 19 River
I'm
Road.
19 River.
Ask all those questions.
George
What
is
was
19
that
River
old
Road.
and depressed thing we were
Old
talking
depressed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That was the word Cape, it threw me.
so, all right,
You
so
were
we
a
have,
keeper?
so item 3, which is George has the.
Thank you. I'm going to do my best with the abbreviations. If someone can help me along, I'll do that. I've never done it before. All right, Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision. Application of Cape Arundel Golf Club Storage Shed Expansion, 19 River Road. Following site plan reviews pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on, excuse me, 6 December and 20 December 2023, and a public hearing held on 3rd January 2024, today. The Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. 1, the applicant and owner of record is Cape Arundel Golf Club with mailing address at P.O. Box 1447, Kennebunkport, Maine 04046. 2, the Cape Arundel Golf Club is a nonprofit, T13/B, in good standing with the state of Maine. 3, in letter, the Cape Arundel Golf Club authorized Phil Hesketh, R.A., with a mailing address of 66 Ridley Road, Sanford, Maine 04073, to act as agent in this matter. 4, the property has a street address of 19 River Road, Kennebunkport, Maine 04046. 5, the property is identified as map 12, block 1, lot 13 on the municipal tax assessor's maps. 6, the applicant demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a quitclaim deed for the property recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Books 1189, page 028 on August 16, 2002. 7, the property is located in the Village Residential Zone, Shoreland Zone, and Resource Protection Zone. 8, the property comprises approximately 79.3 acres. 9, in an application dated 15 November 2023, the applicant proposes to build a 20 by 40 foot, 280 square foot addition to an existing 46 by 16 foot steel storage building. The plan includes moving an existing dumpster to be adjacent to the building with a concrete enclosure. 10, the building will have a concrete foundation, interior lighting, seasonal water, and will be unheated. 11, the building will not have any additional parking or unloading areas. 12, the applicant has provided a map indicating the structure and proposed addition are outside any shoreland protection zone. 13, applicant requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. 14, pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance Guidelines for Decisions, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on any one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. Then A, B, C, D, E, F, E findings are yes, F and G findings not applicable, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P findings yes or non-applicable. When a proposed development will be located within the shoreland zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the townwide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval of the development will also require that the board makes positive findings based on the information presented that the proposed use findings for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all findings are yes. Any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. The application is otherwise complete. Conclusions. Article 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the Board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to the Article 10.11 and 10.12e. 1, the applicant pursuant to 10.12e shall notify the Planning Board prior to the transfer of rights to construction of an approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. The applicant shall provide the town of Kennebunkport a copy of the MDEP permit by rule prior to commencement of any work. 3, receipts of permits from ACOE and MDEP is a condition of approval. 4, the applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the town of Kennebunkport ordinances, as well as the MDEP approvals, dated 3 January 2024, Kennebunkport Planning Board.
You're hired. You get to read all of them from now on.
No way.
Yeah, exceptional.
Well,
So Mike, why don't you proceed with?
I hope it did okay with A, B, C, D. At one point, I felt like I was doing the alphabet.
I like it.
I was singing with you. Kennebunkport Planning Board, finding of facts and decision, application number 230802. Final subdivision application, Ms. Owen? Development, Old Cape Road, Kennebunkport, Maine. The following reviews of the preliminary subdivision application held on Fourth October 2023 and 18 October 2023. Reviews of the final subdivision application were held on December 6th and December 20th, 2023. Oh, Lord. Pursuant to the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations, and the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following finding of facts and conclusions and renders the following decisions subject to the conditions enumerated below. Finding of facts are as follows. 1, the property is located in the free enterprise zone at the corner of Old Cape Road and Roberts Lane. The property owner, Pamela Hutchins, with a mailing address of 2 Spring Street, Kennebunk, Maine, 04043. The applicant, Mazoan Development LLC. The applicant, 4 Driftwood Lane, Saco, Maine, 04072. The property is identified on the map 22, Block 9, Lot 2 of the Municipal Tax Assessor's map. On behalf of the owner, the applicant demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed recorded with the York County Register of Deed, Book 3159, page 269 on September 1983. The property comprises of 2.72 acres per information provided by the applicant. In the application dated 2 November 2023, the applicant proposed splitting one lot from the existing 2.72 acre parcel. The final subdivision application was found complete on December 6, 2023. Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance 240-6.14.c requires the planning board to review and approve because the lot is shown as an outsell lot, has been split from the original parcel in the last 5 years. The applicant requested waivers for the high-intensity soil and hydrological assessment and a stormwater management plan from the requirements of the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations. The board grants these waivers. Conclusion. The criteria of Title 30-A-MRSA, paragraph 404, and the standards of the town subdivision regulations have been met and subject to the conditions enumerated below. Decision. In accordance with Articles 7, 8, 9 of the Town of Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and Title 30A MRSA paragraph 4404, the planning board grants approval of the applicant's final plan application. Conditions of approval. This approval must be recorded with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval, or it becomes null and void unless an extension is granted by the board in writing. 2, prior to any permits being issued, the applicant will execute and record right, title, and interest in the property through a deed or deeds recorded in the York County Register of Deeds. 3, the applicant will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinance and subdivision regulations, and of all applicable federal, state regulations and approvals, as well as those specified in the final application, all of which is incorporated herein by reference, dated January 3rd, 2024. Here endeth the reading.
I don't think we moved to approve George's, so we want to move to approve both readings, both FOFs we've read.
So moved.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, will do.
Ed? Approve?
Approve.
Approve.
Approve. Approve.
Okay, so, well,
We
I
adjourn.
guess then, once we finish signing, and Mike, you have the other one to sign,
Yep.
unless, oh, you just took it down to him.
Signing fool down here.
I will note that April printed the wrong copy,
She did.
but it was only a couple of minor deletions that I'm not sure were terribly significant,
Good.
but were.
Did you read it as written?
I read it as written.
Thank you.
It
think we're good
sounded
then.
to us, yes.
We're good.
Ta.
All right, this one's
But it didn't include two Anina's that she made late on. At the last meeting, I put them in there, and they didn't seem to make it to the printed one that I sent her today, but that's fine.
That was the one that Mike hadn't
Need to
signed
sign
yet.
that one.
I've signed, yeah,
So I think this one is all set. This is the other one, Cape Arundel.
Thank you.
That's the golf club.
You already signed that. Thank you.
I signed that? I already signed that.
Yeah, it got sent back up because Mike hadn't signed yet.
Oh, okay.
This is all signed too.
I signed 4. It should be all of them.
That's good. I'll take another motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Agreed.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Does anybody have a